It does not matter how many followers you have. People are smarter on social media. People care more now about what are you teaching? What is the value? What is the feeling I have when I'm in your presence? I care more about that than I do about the tens of thousands of followers.
You had this amazing brand and following on social media, on Instagram, and recently it was just gone. It just one day, like poof, in this age of like censorship and cancel culture and we have to be so conscious of like what we're posting and what we're doing. And even when we're not doing anything quote unquote wrong, like it can just be taken from us, all those years of creating. And so what happened there?
Oh, it's like this dramatic story, really. And there's going to be a happy ending that I can promise everybody listening,
Okay,
So
great.
I will hopefully give some tips along the way as well to support those listening in on ways to potentially protect themselves from this happening to them. So it
Mhm.
was a podcast Tuesday and I was recording podcasts all day and I got off of podcasts and I received an email from Facebook and I still don't know if this was the hackers or if they had already been in and this was a legitimate email from Facebook. I don't know that. I feel like they got in and it was legit from Facebook, but again, I'm not entirely sure. But it said you have crossed a guideline, a community guideline. You have so many hours to appeal this before we disable your account. And so I went into Facebook and I quickly contacted my team. I was like, what's happening? What did we do? Because I'm usually the one that posts. I'm very active on my social media. I really love the art of social media. So it's my creative
Mhm.
outlet. So I do most of my social media. So I
Right.
thought, what happened while I was recording? We did put up a reel that was with the podcast. We thought, what if I said something on that reel? Like we were just racking our brains. So when I went into Facebook, I could see that there was a video on my Facebook account with like just that little play button, but I couldn't play it. And so I went into appeal and it just became this cat and mouse game. So what they do is when they get into your account, they end up changing the email and the phone number to theirs. It'll still show as your own, but it's actually in fact theirs. And so when you go to change your password, you know how you get that email saying someone's tried to change your password, click here if this was you. Well, they're getting that email. So they're saying, no, it's not me. So it kicks back into them doing a new password. And it's just this circle. And so I definitely played the game. I was frantic and just the word trauma comes up because it felt really traumatic. And I know when we see things in the world, like what's happening in Ukraine and all that we have been through as a society as a whole over the last few years, these are real traumas. I understand. So I'm not comparing them to world issues, but in my world, for my business, this was pretty traumatic. It was 16 years of wisdom, experience, memories, pictures of my children, a community I had been so dedicated to. I mean, I can say with all sincerity, I wake up thinking about my community. I really deeply care for my work on social media, and I know many people do. And so here's another tip that I must give. I had the button pressed where when you share on Instagram, it automatically shares to Facebook and vice versa. And I hadn't thought about Instagram. I was just so preoccupied with Facebook and trying to get my Facebook back. But in the meantime, they went in and I had 5 Instagram accounts and they were all disabled as well. So tens of thousands of, I don't like saying followers because I don't really love that term, but heartbeats and community lost. And all this work and effort, it was traumatizing. And so I went shamelessly to LinkedIn. I mean, I didn't play on LinkedIn before this, but I went over to LinkedIn and I thought, oh, I'm going to find somebody who works at Meta. I'm going to find somebody and I am going to ask for some support here because there is no email. They give you these emails. Nobody's paying attention to the emails. There's no email. We had hundreds and hundreds of my community reaching out to those emails saying, please help her, with no response. And on LinkedIn, I found a gentleman who actually did respond to me and said, we actually don't even have an in-house office or persons doing this and in security. Even if this were to happen to me, I work for the company, I would be in the same shoes you are. It just doesn't exist.
Hmm.
That
It's
was a huge
crazy.
eye opener. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy, especially with how often it's happening. Like you would
Mhm.
think that there would be people who can help you navigate this.
Well, yeah, and it's so common now, and I think they want their reputation to be clean. I mean, as clean as it can be, and they've had so much bad PR over the last couple of years that you would think they would want people actively using their platforms, but there isn't. And so, one of the tips I would give is try to get your account back if this ever happened to you, but be careful that you don't go down the rabbit hole and waste time and energy and live in that trauma for too long. It was a good week of me pursuing this day and night.
For
And
sure.
eventually I just felt a release. I felt a release because I went on my Facebook and I ended up being able to log in for a second. And when I logged in, I was able to see what the video was. And it was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life. Like how police are not involved astonishes me, how this stuff is not reported or there's not FBI behind these things. I don't know, but it was something that I will never be able to erase from my mind. It'll always be a picture that I've now witnessed. I didn't care to and didn't want to have that in my mind in my lifetime, but it's there. And
Right.
that was when I just wanted to be clean of it. I thought it's almost polluted now what was. And if I ever did get it back, would I ever feel like it was pure and clean the way I did prior?
Mm.
And I thought, what is becoming iconic? Like, what is this? What am I doing? And it brought me to my knees. And as it brought me to my knees, I realized, what if this was the actual unfolding of the story and people got to witness what actually becoming iconic was?
That's really, really beautiful. Such a lesson for yourself, for your community, and a learning, and like so much growth must have come out of that too, which is just
Mhm.
really beautiful. That's really powerful. So, okay, so first of all, just to clarify for everyone listening, it's the hackers that got into your account and they were able to post
Obscene
video.
content, which
That's
then
so crazy.
triggers Facebook to disable you, which I'm glad they do because this nobody
Of
should see that.
course.
But because you're disabled and because they have your password, it's impossible to get in. It's impossible to do
Yeah,
the appeal. It just basically disables your account.
brutal. And then
Hmm.
because that's connected with Instagram, you lost both.
Yeah.
What about other personal, like private information? Did you think
Hmm.
about that? Like what else they
I
could
did.
actually access? And
I did.
was there anything you
Yeah.
were able to do there?
Yeah, so I immediately well, not immediately, that's not true because the first 2 days I was committed to getting this sucker back. But after that, after I started to loosen my grip of what was happening a little bit, I thought, I gotta protect myself. So I did change all my passwords. I'd love to do a little plug, and I'm not associated with it at all, but I think it's just so smart for business owners. There's a website and an app called LastPass. So
Mhm.
Last, LASTPASS. I love LastPass because you can put your passwords in there and you can share with people. So they never actually know your passwords. They never actually know your login information. So if you have a team and somebody departs from your team, it's not like you have to change all your passwords again. But I love this.
Right.
It's a great hub. But one of the things I did was change all my passwords and made sure I didn't have the same passwords for everything. So thankfully, they didn't get into anything. Thankfully, I didn't have that experience, but I do know because of this experience, I've had lots of people reach out. I do know some people who have had a lot of really horrible things happen, like Facebook ads, and they've racked up their PayPal account because they had a PayPal account attached to the Facebook. So they went in and took the money. So those are little things you can do to protect yourself. Like I would not attach a PayPal account to something like that. Attach a credit card so you can cancel the credit card. Do things that are
Right.
really smart. Think ahead. I mean, hackers are smart from a technology perspective, obviously, but I can't say that they're not smarter than us. We can really do things to protect ourselves and think, what if? And if this were to happen, how can I potentially stop it? And when you do that and you create these things for yourself that guard the precious work you're doing, you are less likely to have something like this happen.
For sure. Okay, so take us through now, kind of recollected yourself, a week goes by, you're stepping
Mhm.
into this space of like, okay, what does it really mean to become iconic, embody this brand and this business of mine? and
Yeah.
this woman, like, then what happened? Like, what did you start to do to really rebuild?
I got excited again because I told you at the beginning, and this is true. I absolutely love the art of social media. I went to school for fashion and styling, and I love that. So this is like my magazine. I always wanted to have my own magazine, so that's how I treat my social media. It really is a creative outlet. So I thought, okay, first of all, it used to be Jen Szpigiel. That was my handle. Nobody knows how to say my name and nobody knows how to spell that name. And so it was like actually tailoring and like coming into the brand. How can we really refine it? How can we up level in this time? Because I get to start fresh. I get to bring everything out new. And so, what are the areas that if I had this opportunity without this happening, I would do? So, becoming iconic was like, of course, I want to have that as the handle and really sink into this brand that I'm building. I'm a part of the brand. I am the brand, but becoming iconic is something I want people to think of. It's a trademarked company and name, and I this is something that's really powerful, and it does make people stop and look because it's not something people hear every day.
For
So
sure.
we really refined the brand, or I did, and I decided I really want to step into leadership. So it also made me look at, what am I teaching? Where do I see myself 5 years from now? And I never really loved being called a business coach, and I never really loved being called a life coach. I felt like that boxed me a little bit, and I felt like I was really something unique and different. So I thought, it's leadership. That's what I love teaching. I love teaching humans how to lead themselves through their life and lead themselves in their business, because we neglect those things. The most important thing, often we're looking for strategy. We're looking for workflows. We're looking for sales information. And all of these strategies are very important, but it's who you're being through that strategy that is the most important, the most potent thing you can do. So it refined my message. I really sat with myself and contemplated. And interestingly enough, those of you listening in, you don't have to have your social media hacked to create this experience for yourself. We can
Right.
rebrand all the time. As a matter of fact, I think it's necessary so things always stay exciting and fresh. But we get to also pivot. Entrepreneurs, that's what we do. That's our character. That is a bit of our personality, is we love just to pivot and shift and tweak and mold. And so allow more of that into your brand, into your business. Give yourself permission to ask yourself questions.
That's amazing. And so, like, the biggest takeaways you got from this experience?
Biggest takeaways I got is, number one, it does not matter how many followers you have. That was a vanity metric that suits 2019. And we're in 2022. People are smarter on social media. People care more now about, what are you teaching? What is the value? What is the feeling I have when I'm in your presence, Jen, becoming iconic? I care more about that than I do about the tens of thousands of followers. So that is number one. It does not matter. And there's so many people feeling like they're not enough because they have 2,000 followers. Like, oh, I don't have enough
Right.
community to be successful. I have less than 1,000 followers at this point right now as we're recording, and I have lineups to work with me. I've never had so much exposure, so much interest. And I think it's because people are watching me lead myself through this and stand and rise to the occasion. And because of that, they care, and the algorithm is working for me again. I mean, I had tens of thousands of followers, but we all know most of those people don't even remember our name. They hit follow at some
Totally.
point, right? And then they forgot. And so now that I have a smaller following and my engagement is higher, the algorithm is definitely in my favor. So I just eradicated the idea that I needed to have a certain amount of followers to feel of authority in what I'm doing. If someone comes by and says, oh, she's less than 1,000, who's she? That's okay. Move along. If that's what you're looking for, is that
Right.
metric to choose whether I am right or wrong for you, then I'm probably not the right choice for you. I'm with the people who care about how someone treats them, sincerity, compassion, leadership, growth, being vulnerable, being willing
Mhm.
to be seen, to show all the parts of our lives, not just the highlight reel. So those things have definitely come through. And the other thing is that we do not own our social media. It's a free platform. That is beautiful. Let's celebrate that. I think it's incredible. that it gives us the opportunity to build businesses for free. I mean, if you think about that, that's pretty expansive and gorgeous.
Totally.
But we also have to remember we don't own it. So where else are you playing? I've heard many people say, especially people I work with, they say, well, I just love Instagram so much. Love Instagram. That can be your hub, but allow the spokes to go into other areas of social media like LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube,
Right.
Facebook, your email list, creating a culture, creating a community, building a website, building a podcast. And not that you have to do all these things, because it is true, not everybody should have a podcast, and not everybody is a gifted speaker or that speaks to them. So it's not that you
Right.
have to do these things, but what could you do to repurpose what you're already doing so that if this were to ever happen, it doesn't feel traumatic? Instead, it's this royal inconvenience, and you pick yourself up and you continue forward.